Welcome to the Girl Dad Show.
Thank you for tuning in to another episode of the Girl Dad Show. I'm very excited to be welcoming Martin to the show today. Martin, thank you so much for joining me, man.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah, I'm super excited to interview you, man. Your setup is awesome. I love the logo and the neon lights. You're going hard on it. I feel like you're a podcaster.
Yeah, like I got tired of Zoom backgrounds, so I just wanted to make my regular office look cool.
It does look really cool. Well, let's jump right into it. Why don't you tell the listeners what you do for a living?
Yeah, so I'm the founder of a company called xPanda.ai. We've built a AI financial analyst. So
That's
it'll
awesome.
help automate all of like your management reporting, any analytics you need around your accounting data, and real soon we'll actually have even forecasting of your business. So then you can go do cash flow forecasting and modeling and all of that.
I love that. That's awesome. That's near and dear to my heart because, as you know, I also do that for a living. So you're coming after our profession trade. I love it.
Not coming after, I'm going to give you superpowers, man.
Oh, you're going to make me superhuman. I love that even more. That's wonderful. Can you tell me a little bit about how you got into this?
Yeah, so my background's in finance and accounting, degrees in both. Grew up in the Seattle area, so went to UW for school for that. And then in early 2000s, I worked for a fractional CFO firm, and we'd help people when it's like 4 people and a dog and they want to raise $1 million. They'd hire us. We'd build their models, get them in front of investors, and then after that, run the books and everything they need, in a fractional basis. So I learned a ton that way, and then now this is sort of like my capstone at the end of the journey.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. I know you have a really, really incredible past too, and it's fun to know that you actually started in finance because you've also done a lot in startup land as well, haven't you?
Yep, yeah, I've been a founder of a company as well as sitting in the passenger seat with the CEO, sitting shotgun while they're trying to grow their business too and being their partner.
Yeah, that's awesome. And then when you think about like your career and your journey as you've navigated a lot of different startups and being part of different companies and building these companies to scale, when did you decide to have kids and when did you start your family? Walk us through that a little bit.
Yeah, so I got married about 8 years ago or so, and jumped right into being a dad immediately.
Nice.
My wife was married before and divorced, and then so I immediately became the dad of a 4-year-old girl, and she's
Cool.
12 now. And then and we had our mutual son as well. He's going to turn 5 next month.
That's awesome. And what was that like?
Yeah, the dad flip was interesting because I was living in San Francisco at the time. So think about your startup tech bro founder in San Francisco. That was me. And it's a completely different flip than all of a sudden when you've got all these responsibilities and a family. But I love it.
Yeah. So when you guys were dating, you guys were already kind of learning this kind of role then, I guess, I'm assuming.
Yep,
Yeah,
exactly.
that's awesome, man. And so that didn't scare you away. It actually made you more interested and excited, huh?
Yep.
That's awesome. Was there anything that was really hard or challenging that you were surprised about?
I think in terms of becoming a dad on there,
Yeah.
I think it's one thing when you see kids on TV and all that, and then all of a sudden you've got this little human looking at you, and they're like, "Hey,"
Yeah.
and seeing how they just look up at you with a sparkle in their eyes, and you are the world to this little human, and and then you're responsible for them, and I immediately picked it up and just went full dad mode, and even before I got married, I was pretty good at dad jokes, so I've been preparing all my life for that.
I feel like we're all born with that for some reason. I feel like all dads are just like ready for that. That's great. That's really, really funny. And then did you always want your own kids as well too, or were you?
Yeah.
That was kind of always the plan. That's awesome, man. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's great. That's so cool. I love that you have that kind of family style. That's really, really unique. And I love that you were dating when your wife had already had a kid. That's awesome. That's very cool. So it's almost like you got a little taste of it before you had yours. What's the major difference between raising a toddler versus a newborn?
I think. So I think it was actually good because I skipped all the diaper, poop, and pee stuff in the beginning.
Yeah.
It was like around age 4, they're like super cute and get toys and you can play with them and all that. So I learned that side, and then did everything kind of backwards. And then she grew a little bit and went to school, and then we had our son, and then I think I was more prepared for it going in, and it's been fun now seeing that journey. So then now he's 4, about to be 5, And now I'm like prepared for, okay, he's starting, pre-K right now and all the things that go from there.
Yeah, that's awesome. So you kind of already know what that looks like because you've already been doing that.
Yep, exactly.
Yeah, it's like pre-training. It's like ramping yourself in a little bit. That's awesome. What does success look like for you as a dad right now?
I think one thing that I've done that I feel like, or success for me, the big one is making sure I have time for my family. When I first started my last company, like burnt the candle at both ends. I was working crazy hours, like made impacts on my health. It made impacts on my relationships. I think in the early days when I first got married, I was still grinding like that. And then I had to get, it just compounded some of that stress, frankly, in the beginning. But then I learned to put, boundaries on there. So like right now, for example, I have a block on my calendar every day, right after work, like 5:30 to 7:30, that says dad time. And it is holy. No one is allowed to book a meeting. I won't take those after hours calls. I will take that time to do whatever my kids want to do. So if it's, sitting down for dinner with them, it's important, asking them through their day. If they just want to play blocks and do Legos, so be it.
Yeah.
Go ride. My son wants to ride his bike around the neighborhood. I'll go with him, and actually find that time to be the most recharging and refreshing time for me. And then I'm able to go, after the kids go to bed, if I need to go work on my business after, that's fine. But like that's a really key thing. And I think as I build this new company, eventually people generally want to make it, have an exit or do something there. Then ultimate success is going to be, can I take time off at 3 p.m. to go do whatever I want on a Tuesday? Like that, I think, is success.
Yeah. So building towards even more financial and time freedom
Yes.
to be able to provide more time for your kids. Yeah. That's interesting. That's very cool, man. And then as you think about that's the future of what success looks like. That's where you want to head. So you're kind of
Yep.
balancing out like where your business grows well with this business.
Yeah, but exactly. And then when you can pick the work that you do and when you do it and with who, that's ultimate success business wise for me, I think.
Huh.
Because then like for example, if I won the Powerball and tomorrow,
Yeah.
I would not just sit on a boat with my kids though. I would still run a business, but I
Yeah.
would do it on my own terms.
Oh, that's interesting. So, and I know you broke down the pillars of it. So it's who you would work with, when you did it, and how you did it.
Yep.
Okay, so break down each one. So when would you do it? How would you do it? And let's say you did win the Powerball. Let's walk me
Yeah.
through that.
I think that's like when as entrepreneurs, when we first start, we're putting our blood, sweat, and tears in the beginning.
Yeah.
We've got a little bit more resources, then there's less of, all right, can we be immediately profitable? Can we do all these things to stay alive? And then instead of surviving, it's more about creating a culture of thriving, and then only work on like the really big, high impact things in your life. So the big projects, the big ones that, maybe they'll be even harder, but because you set up that framework there, you go take a bigger swing instead of, normally when we build our business, it's like every month, all right, we made a little bit more profit. Can we reinvest? Can we do this? I probably, I've got a whole bucket list of things I want to do. And,
Yeah.
Time is the most valuable asset in the world. So if you can free that up, that's my mindset. How do I build more time for myself?
That's awesome. But then when you think about it in business, is that really what you're saying? Like success is like being able to control your business enough that you could be flexible with it?
Yeah, I
Or
think
is it?
like as you build your business, like my mindset has always been, how can I fire myself? So that, and that sounds bad, but it's like, how do you make it that your business can operate without you being the glue? And if that happens, like that, you can go take a vacation and it's not going to fall apart when you come back. And if you can successfully operationalize the business, then it's running, and it's not like the Young show or the Martin show. It's it's whatever the thing is that you've created. And getting to that point is hard in the early days, because in the early days as an entrepreneur, you have to do everything. And I'm constantly evaluating and thinking like, how can I automate myself? So like part of what I did with xPanda, I was doing some CFO consulting, and then I brought in some AI engineers, and I just documented everything that sucks up my time. And I go, can you save me 4 hours a month per client doing this thing? And then we go do it. And then the next thing. And I'm, right now, trying to leverage technology, for example, like that to do all, take things off my plate that before you had to get customers and revenue to go do.
That's interesting. So you're basically just operationalizing yourself, and that's kind of the genesis of xPanda?
Yep, exactly.
Oh, that's great. I love it. So essentially, it's what you're trying to solve for is your own problems doing services.
Yep, exactly. Because like inherently in CFO consulting, it's a hours and relationship type of business, and it's
Right.
like I'll still do, I'm sitting in on board meetings with people, helping them out, I'm giving more guidance, but if I'm able to automate all the legwork stuff and the stuff, the prep that has to happen before all of those meaningful
Yeah.
conversations happen,
Right.
that's the kind of thing. If I can do that for myself, that's what most, like in my space, finance and accounting professionals, they can do the higher value stuff, and that's frankly more fun too, in my mind.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. I love that. And then, where did you learn how to build this kind of automation and stuff? Are you doing it through other people? Are you doing it yourself, or a combination of both?
Yeah, I think so. My background's finance and accounting. I'd say I'm a mediocre coder, but like good enough to be dangerous.
Yeah, yeah,
But I surround myself with people that are smarter than me at the things that I don't know how to do.
yeah.
And, I've built software products before, and before that, before I even started my last company, I was going in Excel and building a bunch of VBA macros and all these
Right,
automations to
right.
go scrape data and put it all in. So, I'm a tinkerer, and I'm
Yeah.
learning, especially within data, and spreadsheets are my canvas.
Yeah, I believe that anybody that works in spreadsheets can. I feel like there's a lot of similarities in engineering and coding, in my opinion. But obviously, I don't know. I've never really developed a website or any kind of software before. But I feel like the thought process is usually very similar.
Yep.
Yeah. What do you think about your kids and thinking about them like coming into the workforce in the future? What do you want them to work with you or work for you? Do you want them to be W-2s or what are your goals for them?
I think I want them to be happy
Hmm.
and find meaningful work that will be good for them. So
Hmm.
like my daughter, she says she wants to be a doctor. She's
Hmm.
12. She's like, I want to be a doctor.
It's awesome.
And, so like, we found a course where they were doing like, emergency first aid, and it was for like middle schoolers and high schoolers.
Mm.
And they're like, hey, do you want to go do this thing and learn the basics of some of that? And it's like a little like 2-day camp,
Yeah.
stuff. But it was like so interesting, and like so it's about you expose your kids to stuff, they'll like it or they won't. They're humans. Everyone has their own needs, wants, and desires.
Right.
And yeah, I think she's doing that next week, and we'll see. And then like if we find out she's afraid of blood, better find out now than school and pay for college, and then find out she's squeamish.
Yeah. So expose like finding out what they want, then helping them expose them to more opportunities to explore those options.
Yep, exactly. Like for my son and my daughter, like I'm trying to help expose them also to like a lot of like STEM stuff, science, technology, math. So we get like for our kids, we got them really curious. Like every kid generally likes Legos, for example, and building stuff. But like
Yeah.
we get these little kits where every month they go build a small machine. And my daughter loves it, and then my son's, he's 4, so he can't follow the instructions quite yet, but he goes
Yeah.
ape shit when he sees am I allowed to say that on the podcast?
Yeah, totally.
He goes
Yeah.
ape shit when he sees the little Crunch Labs box come, and
Yeah.
he's like ready to co-build with her on the side.
That's awesome. So you're
Yeah.
giving them like the inroads to STEM through these things.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and then he actually the other day he asked me, he's like, can I get those kits for me too? And I'm like, well, you're turning 5, they might be a little hard. And he's like, are there any that are for like age 5? I'm like, let's see. And then we went online and I found a bunch of them for appropriate for his level. And he's like, I want this one and this one and this one.
That's awesome.
Like instead of giving a bunch, just some Hot Wheels toys for his birthday, he's like, can you get me those for my birthday? He literally asked me to go through a bunch of STEM build kits for his
Yeah.
birthday.
That's awesome. So you're really pushing that. That's awesome, man. I think that that's really great because it's kind of funny. I mean, just to give you some personal information, I
Yeah.
push music. I actually push music on my kids a lot, and I feel like it's really funny because for me, it's like I grew up playing music, and
Yeah.
my parents really encouraged the arts, and so drawing and playing instruments and things like that. It's so funny to think about how different parents pursue and kind of encourage their kids to do different things. But in my mind, I feel like so much of music is math based. If you actually learn the composition of what music is, and then two, I also feel like once you understand the like the mathematics behind the music, then you can learn how to be very creative, how to work outside of the boxes. And so it's really funny because it's kind of the same thing I think I'm trying to do, just in a different angle, right? Where it's like
Yeah.
you're tackling it straight on with STEM, and I'm kind of tackling it with something that's creative. But
Yeah.
what do you think about that?
Yeah, no, I see a lot of analogies. Like in the end, it's all, rhythms and patterns and everything's, quarter note, full note, all of that. So they start
That's
learning
right.
fractions in there. You're learning different scales. And like our daughter, actually, she's like a very artsy person. So she does a lot of dance. But like, she signed up for band this year and she's now going through. And she picked out the clarinet. But like I had a keyboard in my like a piano keyboard in my closet forever. And I went and I put it in the kids' room, and lo and behold, like a month later, I hear the Bluey theme song playing on.
Oh, that's awesome.
My daughter like found the sheet music, and they shot it from her clarinet, and I had like the little stickers for what are all the notes on the piano, and
Yeah.
she figured it out.
Yeah.
And then my son, also he went ape shit again when he heard the Bluey music. He's trying to get into it too.
I love it. That's awesome, man. Yeah, that's great. What do you think about your kids being entrepreneurs? Do you have any kind of emotional feelings or sentiments towards that?
I encourage it fully. Another part of like exposing people to, we actually did that for our daughter. They made it, here in Austin. There was like a camp where you could build a business idea, and they walked you through the whole thing. And it was a bunch of like local female business owners in Austin that had different businesses, and they were like the coaches as they were going through that. So
Yeah.
like, she did that last year and had a lot of fun too.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. That's very cool. So you'd be fine with it. You don't
Oh
have
yeah,
a
absolutely.
apprehension towards it. That's great. Awesome. But in the end of the day, you just want them to be happy. But if it ended up being an entrepreneur, that would be fine.
Yeah, because that's like the best way to control your own destiny in my mind. Because when you're working for a big company, you're just mortgaging your life, for a salary. And if you can build something that's, your business is an asset, like that's the most valuable way to do it. And I actually had a life experience of realization of that, when I was early on, like when I was in college, and
Right.
that's what kind of set me down the entrepreneurship path.
That's awesome, man. Yeah, that's a really good statement. I personally very, very hopeful, and I don't. I'm the same as you. I just want them to be happy, and if they want a W-2, I'll be supportive. But man, I just pray to God that they want to start a business with me or work in one of my businesses and take over. Like, I don't know anything I'd be happier about. Like, that would be like unbelievable for me to be able to build businesses with my kids. That'd be
Yeah.
super fun. What do your kids think you do for a living?
They think I sell panda paraphernalia on the internet.
That's awesome. They think you so.
Yeah, because I see like with my last company, we had a giraffe logo, and then
Oh,
and I had I ordered a couple thousand stuffed giraffes
nice.
online, and then we'd hand them out at conferences. So my kids saw that, so they thought I was a giraffe paraphernalia seller then, and then now I've got a bunch of panda swag.
Yeah. Yeah. What's with the animals? It sounds like there's a theme there.
I've always loved companies that use like an animal for their logo. I always find it kind of like there's a emotional element to it. And, like one of my favorite things that ever. I remember when I first got into startup stuff. I went to a startup meetup, and it was back when Mailchimp was like a little company, and they gave me a T-shirt with a Mailchimp, like a little monkey with a mailman bag, and it was like my favorite T-shirt ever. And I was like, hell, I love this brand, and like
Yeah.
immediately signed up. Like the feeling of that felt so cool, off of that, and that stuck with me when I was then thinking about brands and creating an emotional connection somehow, and not just making it be a bunch of squares somewhere like you see with a lot of tech companies.
Yeah. That's cool. So you had a really good emotional journey with Mailchimp, and that kind of inspired you to have that idea of using animals as all of your company logos. That's awesome, man. That's great.
Yeah, and then I try to add some symbolism in there. Like, for example, for xPanda, it's actually, there's, within, finance, there's the acronym, FP&A. And if you wrote that out, but And I thought, well, that's financial planning and analysis.
Yeah.
What if we took the F out of the financial planning and analysis and made it an X variable? Because there's someone that needs to plan and analyze all their different, business data. It could be data out of HubSpot, and it could be for RevOps. It could be data out of HR stuff,
Yeah.
or it could be, finance and accounting data. So that's why we named the company xPanda that way, and a little kind of double entendre with, or pun or whatever you want to call it with the panda in there.
Yeah, I didn't even put that together. That's really clever. I like it. You're a poet or a rapper or whatever you call it.
Yeah.
I like that double entendre. That's nice, man. Did you do the same thing with the giraffe company?
Yeah, like with the draft one, we had symbolism because I really, we were doing budgeting with that company, and I loved how the giraffe sees above the trees and above the forest. So it was like always having that symbolism of like the line of sight above everything else, and then we always made like I had a hard rule that you were never allowed to make the giraffe looking left. So then it was always a giraffe to the right, and it was like up and to the right, like the charts of our
Awesome.
financials if we wanted them or how we wanted
Awesome.
them to be.
Oh, that's so fun. I can't wait for, I mean, I'm hoping that this is like a really great business for you, but I'm already eager to see what your next business is so I can try to decipher it before you have to tell me what it means. That's awesome, man. I love how
Yeah.
much thought you're putting into your names. That's great. And then, so you've always been an entrepreneur, then, right? Other than that couple stints, as a fractional, as other helping other CEOs, have you always been minus that one early job as a fractional?
Yeah, I mean, I made my first business in eighth grade.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
What was it?
I built do you remember those old Nokia phones that had Snake on them with the green screen?
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so I made a website where I actually, and this is related to music. I went to the music store, I got the sheet music for pop songs and hip hop songs, and then would put them into MIDI files. And then you could download the MIDI files as ringers for your Nokia phone. So then, like, people
Nice.
could get Tupac and Dr.
Yeah.
Dre songs on their Nokia phone. And I made a website for this, and this was like 98 or 99, 97, something
Wow.
like that. And so the internet was still new. And I remember I put ads on it, and I was getting a lot of people on there because it was just free download, and I had a bunch of ads. I made $3,000 a month in eighth grade back in the
Wow.
90s. And my mom was like, "What are you doing?" And I'm like, I made a website, and I spent it all on like baseball cards and candy and BMX bikes.
That's awesome, man. That's so cool. I love that hustle. How'd you even know how to do all that in eighth grade?
I just tinkered and figured it out. Like learned HTML, looked at, view source, started adjusting stuff, and I was like, okay, I figured this out. I got a book on PHP, started building some stuff there, and then and then something popped out.
That's amazing, man. Because I remember '98. That's when I graduated high school, actually. And I remember that's when like the first like the direct to consumer routers were coming out, like Wi-Fi routers. That was like the first time we'd ever seen it at like the stores where you could like buy them for your personal use. They were like $500. I remember those days. Those were crazy days. So you were doing this when you were still like dial up, huh?
This
Like
was
plugging.
back when we had the AOL CDs.
That's right. That's right. That's amazing. That's so cool, man. I love that. And then, what does your wife think about you being an entrepreneur and being a dad? Like, is she ever nervous about it, or what are her thoughts
All
about
the
you?
time. She's
Yeah.
just she's like, you're killing yourself over this. Like when times are good, it's like, oh great, we get to go on vacation, we get to do whatever. But then when it's tough, it's
Yeah.
she'll be like, are you sure you want to do this? I do not want to go be a VP of finance at a big company. I love
Yeah.
doing this. I love building stuff. I love taking my own pain points and then productizing solutions to them. And there's other people that have those same pain points. And when you see other people then liking the thing that you've built, it's like there's a lot of it's just an amazing feeling there.
Yeah. And so, it sounds like you're successful and able to communicate this with her and get her rallied
Yeah.
around you. How do you plan on, or maybe you already are, but how do you plan on teaching your kids this level of resilience and belief in yourself?
I think I try to not solve problems for them many times. So if they're running into something, I'll ask them like, they're like, oh, this thing happened. I'll be like, well, don't, I like, there's always the joke like, oh, my foot hurts when, because it'll turn their ankle, and they'll be like, don't step on your foot then, like, so teach them, how to avoid the problems, how to solve them, and do my best to kind of guide them instead of just giving them the answer if I can.
That's awesome. Yeah, that's a good way to do it. It's very tricky for me because like I get so impatient, and so I always have to struggle to like really like be conscious when that happens to slow down enough to do it. But yeah, that's a good way to do it, man. Make just kind of almost like coaching and mentoring versus like directing and telling.
Yeah, and you feel like you got to be like, as a parent, like a reverse psychologist many times, but it's a lot of times the same way, like when I'm building my companies, even though I know the answer, in the early days, I used to be the guy that would run around and just bark out the answers, be like, we're doing this, blah, blah, blah. And like, now I'll ask, like, use the Socratic method,
Yeah.
ask people, what do you think the solution is?
Yeah.
And then at a certain point, if they don't come up with the same solution that I have in my head, I'll be like, have you thought about this? And then
Yeah.
you're like, oh, that's interesting. And then all of a sudden they'll feel like it's their own idea, even though it's mine, and they'll still make it happen.
That's funny. I think that's the Socratic method is a really good way to raise kids. I definitely agree with that. And I try really hard to implement that, but it's hard, man. It's
You
really
got to be
hard.
patient because sometimes,
Yeah.
like when they're screaming and throwing a tantrum or something, like
Yeah,
they're just not listening. But
there's no reasoning, bro. Yeah. And you have to keep at it. You have to stay super patient and disciplined because they're unreasonable, they're young. So absolutely, but it's a really good methodology. That's a great answer. All right, so and then now I know what your kids think about what you do for work, which is super funny, and I know what your wife thinks about you being a business owner. That's awesome. So let me ask you a little bit. Were your parents also business owners, or what did they do?
they actually, so they've got an interesting story. We came over as political refugees to the
No
U.S.
kidding.
So I'm Polish, and Poland was communist in the early 80s. So they snuck out of Poland. I was born actually, they were in a refugee camp in Austria. I was born there, and then we moved to the U.S. Like when you hear about immigrants with like $100 and two suitcases, that was us. And
Wow.
so we came to the U.S. early 80s that way. No businesses would recognize their diplomas. They were college educated.
Oh
Everyone's
wow.
just like looking at this Polish thing and being like, what the hell is this? So they went and they had to go redo school. Like my mom did school, while my dad just found like repair jobs and mechanic jobs and things like that. Then once she got her day job going, she was a lab tech, so she did a biology degree and then worked for the Department of Health. Then my dad, he was working full time, taking night school. He ended up actually being, you could say my dad was my college roommate because he graduated college a year before I graduated college.
Wow.
Yeah, and then after that though, he ended up getting a really great engineering job. He was a lifer at Boeing, worked at, in the defense division there. So like he'd always bring me into, before he got into the top secret stuff, he'd bring me into the Boeing plant and show me all the machines and how they're building stuff, and he'd bring blueprints home, and he's like, hey, look at this thing I'm building now. And
That's so
I thought it was
cool.
like the coolest thing ever. So that, piqued my curiosity at I think the building side of things.
Yeah. So they almost had to restart after they came over, even though
Yeah.
they had all those educations. Man, good for them. What a great story and journey. It probably taught you a ton.
Yeah, it taught me to grind, like just hard work. You got to set a goal and go for it.
Yeah. And do you feel like you struggle teaching that to your kids at all, or do you feel like you're able to teach that same level of like kind of tenacity and determination?
I think the grit that you teach by helping them try to by guiding them to solve their own problems and experiment a little bit starts building that. And that's, I'm very conscious about.
It's awesome, man. Yeah, that's a great story. Yeah, kudos to your parents, man. That's amazing. All right, let me switch gears here a little bit. I'd love to ask you some of my standard questions that I ask every guest, and then we'll get you on your merry way here. Martin, one piece of advice that you have for soon-to-be parents or other parents out there.
No one knows what they're doing when they're a parent. You can read all the baby books, but and then you're gonna like they're gonna hand you this little blob,
Yeah,
this little kid when they're born, and you're gonna figure it out and just follow your instincts. And I think
yeah,
your natural instincts are generally good, on that side for what you got to do.
yeah. That's great advice. Yeah, that was a really funny moment for me when I got my kid. I'm like, I'm barely an adult. There's
Yeah.
no one managing me. It was so funny.
Yeah, I remember when my son was born and they're like, here's this little dude, and I'm
Yeah,
like, okay, how do I hold him? I think I'm supposed to support the neck. I hope I don't. And then the whole thing, instead of like soaking in the moment, I'm just like, I hope I don't drop him. I hope I don't drop him.
exactly. Yeah, that's funny. That's great. Okay, so one thing that you're surprised about yourself after becoming a parent.
One thing that I'm surprised that I learned myself after becoming a parent.
Yeah.
I think that I I learned to set better boundaries in my work life because the work will always be there. And prioritizing, like you could go, there's not that much of an incremental difference between, working to midnight versus 2 a.m. or 3 a.m., but like, making sure that you're always recharged, refreshed, that you have the right energy. The productivity boost from that is really important. And that's why I incorporate like that dad time on my calendar because that's my refresh time. And, if I need to, maybe I'll exercise while I'm doing that, but I bring my kids into it. Like,
Yeah.
so I'll figure out ways to multitask those things. But I think that brings the right balance to life instead of just always being in grind mode like I was in my early days.
Oh, I love that, man. That's great. If you could tell yourself one thing before having kids, what would you tell yourself?
One thing before having kids that, so like if I had a time machine to go back to
Yeah.
jump out of the DeLorean and tell myself something.
I love that you get the DeLorean, your time capsule. I love that
Yeah,
you just
and
referenced that.
I think the big one is your kids grow up really fast. Take a lot of pictures in the moment because pretty soon, like, the difference between a 6-month-old and a 1-year-old, that's double their life. Then all of a sudden they're 2, it's another, new human, and then they're 4, it's a whole new human each time. And, I'm thankful for my Google Home that pops up all the memories, on this
Yeah.
day, this year ago.
Yeah.
Because without that, like a lot of that stuff can it's hard to soak those in. So soak in those moments so that they're really important and they're precious.
Love it, man. All right, last 2 questions. You have a favorite book or a podcast that you could share with the listeners?
I mean, my favorite podcast is the same as I think 100 million plus people's, Joe Rogan. I love all things aliens, biohacking,
That's awesome.
politics, all of that stuff. So I think
Yeah.
he's got a lot of interesting people on there.
Yeah, he does. He really does. Yeah. We didn't even go into the aliens things. I'm like super into it all of a sudden. I watched that movie Age of Disclosure
Yep, it was a great one.
and I'm just like, what is going on? I'm like, why are we talking about this more? This is crazy.
Yeah, it's gonna be. I think it's gonna be interesting, especially with all the stuff Trump said about releasing the UFO docs and all of that. So Polymarket says there's a 22% chance that aliens will be confirmed real this year. So that's the odds at the moment.
I think they will be. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'm surprised it's only 22%. I mean, if you look at the movie Age of Disclosure, it sounds like there's already accredited and established politicians and leaders that are already like validating it. So I'm not really sure what else there is to like validate. It sounds like it's already been validated,
I
but
think it's more of will it happen in 26 or 27 or 28? But
yeah, it's like when, not if. Yeah, that's interesting. And then, so my last question to bring us home. Wait, did you Joe Rogan? You said Joe Rogan podcast. That's right. Okay, so last question. So, what do you do for fun? What's your downtime activities when you're not building business or being a super dad?
I mean, I love to travel. I've got like a bucket list of stuff. So every year I try to make sure I do one huge bucket list trip somewhere. And I usually try to do one skill that I learn every year. That's like something that I haven't done before that I want to learn to do.
Cool. That's awesome. What's your skill that you're trying to learn this year?
So over the last 12 months, I picked up stand-up comedy classes.
No way. That's awesome.
Yeah,
That's awesome.
So that was kind of fun. I've got this dream of like I speak at all these accounting conferences, and instead of talking about budgeting and advisory, I want to do like a 30-minute set just roasting the accounting profession and just be funny like that. Like I would love to do that at one of the next conferences.
That's great. What a great skill to add. I want to add that to one of my skills. I do the same thing. I try to learn something new every year as well. That's a great one. I never thought about that. There's classes for that?
Yeah.
Send me
in, East Austin. I'll send you.
Send me a link. Yeah, please. I'll do it next year. That sounds super fun. This year I'm learning boxing.
Yeah,
and I'm training how to do. You've done that before?
I take like boxing and conditioning classes at my gym twice a week, 7.
Oh, nice. So you're already a veteran in it. Yeah. I've never taken it before. It's been super fun. I've thoroughly enjoyed it so far, but I'm going to try to train as hard as I can and see if I can't even try to compete this year. But I'm the same as you. I always try to learn one new skill because I feel like it puts myself in a learner's mindset at all times. And I think that really helps me a lot in my business building, and abilities. So I'm assuming that's the same for you, just kind of putting yourself in a constant state of learner's mindset.
It's that like don't get in a rut. Always be kind of tinkering, exploring. Some of the things are like stand-up comedy, I think it's relevant towards business and public speaking. But like a couple years ago, I went and I did a solo skydiving class. You know what? When I
Cool.
jumped out of that airplane and like pulled the chute myself and landed, I felt invincible for like ever after that, and that helped in business as well.
Yeah. 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 New experiences. That's also a good point of it. Yeah. I think getting new perspective and new experiences also helps with vantage points.
Yep.
Yeah. That's really clever, man. I love it. Well, Martin, thank you so much for taking some time out of your busy schedule to talk to me on my little show here. I know it's not your normal business show that I'm sure you get called into, but I hope you had some fun and enjoyed your time.
Absolutely. No, this was a pleasure. Thank you, man.
Yeah, I appreciate you, man. We'll talk soon, okay?
Thanks. Bye.
Thank you.